In Germany, we did a calculation. The Ministry of Economy did a calculation how Germany should be positioned in the energy sector in future, and they just forgot to include batteries inside.
That is Dr. Radovan Kopecek, a physicist and co-founder of ISC Konstanz. He thinks that one of the biggest mistakes in energy transition is planning the future grid without fully accounting for storage, even when costs are falling fast.
For Germany, of course, the last puzzle piece is long-term storage, and many people say that hydrogen will be the final solution. I also agree with that.
He breaks down what the system is still missing and why long-duration solutions matter if you want reliability through the winter as well.
Even if the cell is bombarded by protons and electrons, with some procedure, when the sun is not shining, we can repair the cell and the satellite is in the dark zone.
Today he shares why the next phase of solar is inseparable from storage and how new efficiency technology is opening unexpected frontiers, including space. By the end of this conversation, you will learn what is slowing policy and grids down, what solutions actually close the gap, and where technology is heading next. I'm Peter Pongracz, and this is Soliverse, the future of solar. Nice to finally see you again, and it's been a while, right? It's been almost half a year. Now we met in August, and you've been touring the world ever since, right? So why don't you tell us about that?
Thanks, Peter, for having me again. Yes, we chatted half a year ago, and as you know, everything is even going faster now, and we have interesting politics, economy, and yes, in PV, the PV world is turning even faster. And China, there are many changes. In India, they plan to go to 100 gigawatt vertical integrated production. You know, they have now a huge module capacity, even overcapacities. So they are not learning from the overcapacity in China. And now they are planning to go towards 70 gigawatt cell production, also ingot wafer. We can maybe dive deeper into the subject later. In Europe, there's also now movement. I don't know if you heard the latest news that there will be 3 billion granted for even German vertical integrated production.
I've seen bits and pieces of that.
Yes, I would also like to know what this exactly is. And in US, it's even crazier. You know, Elon Musk now announcing he wants to go 100 gigawatt production in US, and also vertical integrated. And people do not know exactly what it is about, because he's talking from Tesla side, not from SpaceX. I mean, in SpaceX, he has also big plans to put computing centers into the space. But let's say that's a crazy story. But I believe what is happening in US, what we also thought half a year ago, that this announcement of mini nuclear power stations, you know, Amazon was telling, now the computing centers will be powered by mini nuclear power stations. That's complete nonsense, of course. This will be done by solar and storage, because storage now became so low cost that that's the only thing it makes sense to set up a huge capacity of electricity production. So I think it's about this. And Elon, when he decides to go, I think he will go.
Yeah, I mean, the smart lesson to be learned is that you never bet against Elon. You know, like whether you like him or not, he will execute on the plan. So, and maybe let's start with what we discussed. It was August we spoke, and now it's February 2026. So many things have changed. You know, Trump has been in the office for quite a while, and the US is turned a little bit upside down. And depending on which state you are in, you know, your renewables are a little bit threatened as well. How do you see that? Like, how do you see that change in this short period of time? And what do you expect to see in the future? Maybe let's not even look further than 2026.
So let's first look at US, and they started well with the Inflation Reduction Act. Now it's changed to this big, beautiful bill There are a couple of producing companies in US that will certainly continue because they did build their business plan not only on Inflation Reduction Act, but there are many other incentives, and also what is in favor of producing still in US are the import tariffs, of course. And so Saniva, Q-Cells, ES Foundry are producing PERC at the moment. I believe that TOPCon will come now because Silfab is now ramping up. They had some problems with some rules in the country, and now also T1 is quite active. And I think what's a big game changer is in US is that Corning is now coming with 7 gigawatt capacity of ingot wafer. And they, of course, want to have local production of cells as well. And they have also acquired JA Solar and so module production. And now with Elon's announcements, I think if we can put all the pieces together, I also think that in US we will have, similarly to India, a second PV production hub in the future. And Trump is building on local production and high import tariffs. And so let's say the situation in US is not so bad. And in India, it's now even better with production-linked incentives. And also the Chinese are now trying to assist the Indian players because, in China, it's now forbidden to bring another production facilities in China online. So they have restriction. For example, they can only, let's say, produce 30% of their capacities. Otherwise, there is a market entry. So it's extremely strict. So the Chinese are looking now for possibilities where to expand, and Middle East is one option for them. India now as well, but I believe also Europe. If Europe now puts money on the table for starting local production, then that could be an interesting market. So let's say compared to half a year ago, I'm now more positive about that localization of production will really happen in future.
And on our previous chat, we talked about, potentially working together with China, to basically kind of reverse outsource or resource to Europe and basically both on the factory design and the manufacturing lines, but also the know-how a little bit as well. So has that actually made any sort of meaningful progress on this perspective?
Yes, I mean, there are many announcements now that, for example, Holosolis is working with Trina, and Carbon has now Longi on board. So you can also see in which technology they are now more investing. Holosolis is going the TOPCon way, Carbon more the back contact way, because we also believe this will be the future technology. And also in India, as I told you now, the companies, that Chinese companies try to connect. What happened in India the last half a year was extremely worrying because, let's say, the cooperation of Chinese companies often were meant to send the second-hand equipment to India so that they are able to expand in China. And that is not a good sign because, I mean, Indian market is not a second-hand market. And now I think it will be reversed because couple of companies have already bad experience with second-hand equipment. And so hopefully this will stop. And I hope that the cooperation will be on another level, that also the Chinese will go to India and also develop technologies together with India. And this is what we are doing actually. In India, we have cooperations with a couple of companies producing TOPCon, and they are already asking for back contact. So our mission in India is we are promising to the companies that we are not only sending German equipment there and make the installations, but we are also open to stay in the company and help them with R&D and future developments for back contact and tandems.
That's very interesting. And maybe if you can tell the audience about what you have been doing in China besides the high level things of basically showing them how what are the best ways of producing. But I've seen, you presented at many conferences as well. Can you speak to the kind of local administration's perspective of how they approach solar and the manufacturing side of things, and what are kind of the pros and cons between, let's say, India and China?
We started to cooperate with China long time ago, and we had a big cooperation with a state-owned company, SPIC. They were looking for a high-efficiency technology to differentiate from, let's say, mainstream production like PERC at that time. And ISC Konstanz and SPIC, we cooperated to bring back contact technology to the Chinese market. That was in 2018. And so that was the first back contact technology in China. That means the modules look very nice on the front side because you don't have the metal on the front side, but it's also more efficient than standard technologies because the light can penetrate much easier into the front side without any reflections. And that was at that time the highest efficiency in China. And the couple of companies also have learnings from that, like LONGi and ICO, and went also the back contact way. And we are still organizing workshops in China. For example, last year we had the Bi-Fi back contact PV summit in Yiwu, organized by ICO and ISC Konstanz, and we were showing the PV community and also, let's say, the investors and politicians in China and all across the globe, because there were also many visitors from India, that crystalline silicon technology is still not at the end of the road. We can go to module efficiencies of 26% in future and still increase the levelized cost of electricity, which will be together with low-cost batteries around 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's complete game changer, and then we can also come to the beginning of our conversation. And that's the reason, I think, why Elon Musk is now also realizing that that's the best way to electrify his computing centers. So that's what we did in China for a long time. And now also the Indian market is interested not only to adopt old technologies like PERC, but going also towards new technologies like back contact and tandem. They don't want to be followers anymore. They want to be also leaders in crystalline silicon technology. And I'm also very proud that we were able now to bring the Asian conference back to India again. I'm in a steering committee of Asian PV Tech, and they were always discussing, okay, let's make it in Korea, the World Conference now, let's go to Thailand and China. And I was saying, yes, but we should consider also India to becoming the big production hub. And in 2029, this will be the 40th PVSec in Asia. We go to India. So we are very happy to prepare
that's
also
amazing.
the Indian market for being leaders. Yes.
Do we already have a website we can link to that? So maybe
there's not. So there's still a discussion in which city it should be. I think the last time it was in Calcutta. Now maybe New Delhi or Hyderabad. It depends on which company also will sponsor this conference.
Makes sense. And I'm also doing quite a lot of work with India and the Middle East as well, so we might see each other there in a year or two's time.
If you come to India, please come in October this year. We are organizing the Gigawatt PV Tech conference now for the third time, and this time it will be at the Premier. It's one of the major solar cell and module producers in India, in Hyderabad. And we will also invite many students to show them that they should not only look in really complete new technologies like perovskites, but also be involved in crystalline silicon still. There's huge potential.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll try to do my best to make it. And as you said, different technologies. And what I find with India is that, the innovation and the execution can be so swift compared to, for example, Europe. If they have the backing and both from the political side and also the industry side, things are really, really moving quick. So it's something that we shouldn't take lightly. And there are so many smart people in India who are really able to execute, and all that knowledge which is has been to the US maybe coming back home. It's really significant as well.
Yes, and especially now also when the PV sector is moving towards artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and this is a field where the Indians are extremely well trained to make this happen. So programming and developing of new production strategies and so on. Yeah, so yeah, we can definitely benefit from their knowledge in future.
Yeah, indeed. And I as you mentioned, software engineering and also hardware engineering as well. It's quite their forte. So that's going to put quite a lot of weight behind the whole operation. And in terms of India scaling, we talked a little bit about the solar part. Like, what's their approach when it comes to batteries? Like, how do they view this?
I am not the expert, but definitely they have seen that when they want to play the big game, they have to set up the production across the whole value chain. And so they started with module production. Now they are moving towards cell production to catch up the production capacities they have. And of course, with cell, I don't mean only solar cell for modules, but cell for batteries. And I think this is also picking up there in India, that they want to have also the part of this cake. And I'm sure that they will be quite successful. And also hydrogen is a big buzzword there as well. And silicon, for example, they also want to go this way, because it will be extremely dangerous when they have almost all the part of the value chain, but except of, for example, silicon or ingot wafer, and then China will stop to ship the wafers to India. Then they are dependent again. So they should build a complete independence in their country, because they are energy hungry and they can produce the energy themselves.
And if you look, let's say, 10 years into the future, what would be your bet? We would have like different units or continents of trying to do vertical integration of the whole value chain, such as US, Europe, China, and maybe India as well? Or, like what is the likelihood of sharing some knowledge as well and experience? And because based on the political situation now, we are moving towards a deglobalization, right, of the whole operation of any business. So what would be your bet? How do you see that?
Yes, I think that in future, every country that needs low cost electricity, and I'm talking about electricity because actually the whole energy sector will be moved to electricity also, because of electric cars and heat pumps and things like that, or AI centers. India, US, and Europe will have their local vertical integrated production, and it's quite easy estimation. I think China will be still the biggest players, supplying to rest of the world as well, like to Africa and different places. So in 2027-8, when we will reach, or it's better to talk about 2030, because I think Europe is not ready in 2027. But until 2030, the terawatt production will come from China still, depending on what demand will we have. Maybe 2 terawatt will come from China, and then we will have hubs like US, India, and Europe, where we aim to have 100 gigawatt vertical integrated production for self-consumption, but maybe also for some exports.
Wow. So quite a big gap, right? And if you look at the data coming from China of what they install per year, and they are surpassing every year of all of their targets, what's your feeling on their strategy? Is it, until now they were producing mostly for export, and has that changed? So now it's more for self-consumption as well, or are there any shifting narratives on the political level?
Yes, there are, but in a complete different direction. So they produced, I think in 2025, every second module went to China still. So they installed about 350 gigawatt out of this 700 gigawatts that the world needed. And I heard this news already last year that this will tremendously decrease in China because of net stability problems. And even though they have, let's say, less percentage of their electricity in the grid than Germany, Germany has a more stable net for that. We prepared it already for energy transition. In China, it's not the case. So already last year, there were some bad news and rumors that China will decrease their installations and of solar and will put more wind energy into the grid. That did not happen in 2025. But again, there are some bad news for 2026, that this 350 gigawatt will be reduced to 150 gigawatts. So it will be only half. And but as you know, this news, there are already since 10 years out there. The International Energy Agency is having this bad forecasts, and Bloomberg has slightly better forecast, but still they are saying that now this exponential growth will flatten out. I don't know what will happen this year in China. I guess, yes, it will be not a massive growth again. I think it will be still about 300 gigawatt need this year, but it will slightly reduce. It will not grow exponentially. But the good news is now we have very good solutions also for decentralized systems, like power the computing centers and build with modules and battery, for example, charging stations for cars and so on. So even if China will not expand so much in their installations, I think now the rest of the world will pick it up. And we see it already in many countries, like, for example, last year in Pakistan, there were many households using batteries and modules even without the connection to the grid. And so I'm still convinced that the exponential growth will continue, even if China will not be the biggest user of modules. I mean, they will stay the biggest market, but maybe they will reduce the growth.
Hey, just a quick moment from today's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by PVX.ai. PVX is an AI-powered solar design software built for speed and true utility-scale projects. PVX helps developers, EPCs, create optimized layouts, perform industry-leading cut and fill calculations, identify waterways, and perform soil compaction analysis. As a result, it can cut engineering time and move projects from concept to reality up to 80% faster. If you want smarter designs, higher conversions, PVX.ai delivers. You can now get a 10% discount of all PVX.ai products and services using the discount code Soliverse10. Terms and conditions apply. Check the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to book a demo and see how PVX can help you accelerate your next solar project. Now back to the conversation.
Coming back to what you just mentioned, what would be the biggest bottlenecks that they face? Is it still the grid, as we have in Europe, for example? The negative pricing, etc. So the grid wasn't ready for such, massive expansion of renewables, or what is the main issue there?
Yes, this is what I hear. I mean, here I'm really not a big expert, but I was in China at the beginning of 2025, and I talked to many companies like Futurasan, Aiko, Longi, and they were really fearing that already in 2025 the market will reduce to only 150 gigawatt need, and the government has plans to install more wind capacities because they had just too much electricity in the grid on sunny days, and that's why they already changed their plans to go more to wind energy. It did not happen in 2025. Maybe it will happen in 2026. I don't know. But it's definitely the grid stability here.
On a logical level, it kind of makes sense, right? Because if you talk about wind is a little bit more gradual production. You don't have such peaks as with solar. So if you couple the two, then it makes logical sense. And I've been talking to many companies and across continents, in Europe, US, Middle East, etc. And the general feeling is that nobody is really installing standalone solar anymore, and everybody is shifting their gears towards hybrid projects. So let that be either solar plus BESS or solar plus wind or all three combined. But the era of the standalone large-scale solar project is probably over, and we will have some more flexible solutions that will need to be built, right? What is your take on this?
Yes, absolutely. And batteries are a big thing now. Storage, that every big PV system will go with storage. I'm quite sure. And in Germany we did a calculation. So the government, the Ministry of Economy, did a calculation how Germany should be positioned in the energy sector in future. And they just forgot to include batteries inside. And then, of course, the outcome was, okay, we need more gas power stations to balance. And but it was really a politically motivated not to include batteries in order to really have good arguments for gas power stations. But if you include batteries and batteries are getting so low cost and so powerful, then, I mean, the end of the story will be, it will be not only solar, of course, it's solar, wind, battery storage, and hydrogen in future. And then we have the complete solution.
For sure. And we made so much progress, just since we last spoke in terms of the battery density and also solid states, etc. I even saw on the news the other day that there is already a prototype in China that's fully solid state EV. So that's amazing to see. So that's going to be a complete game changer.
Yes, the sodium battery.
If they can scale that, then we actually cure the problem of the batteries can only be used for short-term storage, and if you can bridge even the winter or couple of months, that would be a massive increase in gains.
Absolutely. So for many countries, the solutions are already there without the necessity of bridging winter. But for Germany, of course, the last puzzle piece is long-term storage, and many people say that hydrogen will be the final solution. I also agree with that, but there are other possibilities to solve that.
For sure. And we started to talk about Europe a little bit. So you mentioned Germany. How have we changed since last year, since we last spoke? What progress have we made or we haven't made?
Yes, we did progress in terms of insolvencies so far. Meyer Burger stepped out, now Aleo and many others. And I would be actually quite depressed when I would not have read the last messages I told you at the beginning of our interview, that there are 3 billions planned to support German local production of photovoltaics. I have to investigate more which consortium is going to go for that. I mean, there were many consortia planned, as you know, in Germany, in this Interessensbekundungsverfahren, this where our Minister Habeck tried to initiate PV production again back in Germany. So the consortia are there, and what was missing was the dedication of the German finance minister, that he blocked everything. Now it seems that there is money in Europe, so let's see what will happen in Germany. In France, we still have these two consortia, Carbon and Holosolis. In Italy, we have Enel and Futurasan and a couple of other companies, because in Italy they have this scheme similarly to the Inflation Reduction Act that US brought on the table. So hopefully the other countries will also follow, in addition to the capex, to this 3 billion, for example, for Germany, there will also some OPEX contributions from each country.
Do you think we should understand this as the EU kind of delegated this to the local levels of the member states? But is it European financing repackaged on the local level, or is it sourced from local governments?
I think it's a mixture. Let's say now the contribution for capex, as I understood, is coming from the European Union to Germany, and then each member state can put some financing scheme also for the OPEX on the table, and this will be, let's say, financed by the member state itself, like Italy is doing. And we talked a lot about how to support the companies with OPEX, and then we had different schemes how to do that. And I think this discussion must be again reinitiated if Germany is also willing to support, let's say, not with bringing import tariffs back, but maybe do it like what is being also discussed on the European level, that part of the PV systems that are installed has to come from now on European level. The wording is outside of China. Hopefully they will also have some willingness to say the bad word. It has to be locally produced, not only outside of China, but local production is the buzzword that actually has to come. So not only outside of China, because then we will have also, let's say, the production from Thailand or Malaysia coming into Europe. So part of the value chain has to be produced in Europe, let's say 30% of it, and that has to be a rule. And this is how you can initiate local production in the country. Not only giving the capex, but also secure part of the market for local production.
Indeed. And, speaking of that, what I actually feel that the narrative has shifted in the last 12 months can be also partially dedicated and attributed to Trump as well. So we are squeezed a little bit more, and we are realizing more in Europe that we really need to secure energy independence. And that's not just energy independence, but it's also political and also industry independence as well. So the more crazy tariffs, etc., Trump comes up with, the more our politicians are actually reacting to that, and it's kind of putting a little bit more urgency in their sail to push these localized productions and to be much more independent, as you mentioned.
Yes. So in Europe, we were sleeping for many years in terms of energy supply. So, for example, in Germany, we bought always cheap gas from Russia, and also in terms of defense, we just did not have any industry or any willingness to build it up, because our big brother US will defend us. This was always clear. Now we have woken up. We have to do it, and so a lot of money is also flowing into energy security, but also defense, and this is what we are building at the moment in Germany and in the whole Europe. So it's a wake-up call.
It is indeed. And on the defense side, I actually heard some rumors here on the European level as well that, for example, if we hypothetically would need to go to war, the problem is that every country is using different ammo. So we actually cannot fight as one unit, right? So it's going to take quite a lot of time and also money to harmonize and line this up, because let's say, hypothetically speaking, if Russia attacked us, what would we do? Would we send them some strongly worded letters like, please don't do it? Or could we actually respond? And I think as of today, we couldn't respond for sure.
Yeah, it will take about 5 years.
And the second part of the defense is that's actually being taken seriously is the cyber defense, right? And this also applies to solar and energy. So if we don't produce our own systems, we know that we already have at least some inverter production in Europe with some significant volumes. But if this cybersecurity question is coming up more and more in terms of energy systems as well, because imagine if some of our adversaries would put to shut down the grid, we really need to be careful of what type of components are we using, what type of software are we using. So have you heard any support on that sense?
Yes, absolutely. And this is what Germany is actually focusing on. So each country up till now had their focus on different value chain. So, for example, Italy is going towards cells and modules because NL is very big in that. France as well. They want to set up cell and module capacities. In Germany, they are mostly supporting inverters and also batteries, but inverters because of the cybersecurity. And this is what I thought that the Germans will support in future. I was extremely surprised about this 3 billion from European Union, that it is thought for the whole supply chain from silicon. I mean, silicon we have, of course, it's Wacker and have more capacities, but in between everything is completely missing. Ingot, wafer, cell and module we had as well, but now there were more insolvencies, so we have to build it up again. And yes, cybersecurity is a big buzzword, and this is what the German government is focusing on. But it seems now they want to have the whole value chain, which is good. And when we talk also about defense, cybersecurity, what is also a good topic now for crystalline silicon is space applications. And so we at ISC Konstanz have developed since 7 years now a solar cell that is suited for space. We call it Phoenix silicon because it's also repairing itself in space. And Elon Musk is now shooting many satellites up there, and also Amazon is planning to do that. And in order that we get independent also from US communication, we have also a program in ESA to have our own communication, and we are working on it also from ISC Konstanz together with ESA, that in future we will also produce our own solar cells and modules for our satellites for communication. And it's becoming a big market. Maybe you have heard also about the visions from Elon Musk now going to the moon with moon station and having the data centers in space and things like that. So space PV is becoming a big market also for crystalline silicon.
Wow, but it's so interesting that you guys also have something that's applicable to space. It's super interesting to hear.
Yes, I mean, we started 7 years ago in cooperation with the US companies, because they are US companies, of course, they have venture capital and are more visionaries. So we have been developing also, let's say, cells for the moon and for low orbit satellites. And now with this knowledge, we approached ESA and DLR and said, now we are ready to further develop it also for European satellites, and even to make the technology improved for European applications. So hopefully we can even lead the market now in Europe.
When we are talking about the space solar and producing in space, then the next bottleneck would be the logistics, right? So SpaceX is already there. They can launch satellites and any type of payloads quite cheap. Do you think we can get there on a European level, or maybe other countries who can, launch and actually bring the rockets down at similar cost scales to SpaceX?
Yes, this is what people are working on, and now ESA also woke up and are sending now astronauts to the space, and I think it's called Artemis, where they have big plans also to send an astronaut to the moon, and have also visions that they want to populate the moon. Not that the US will own the moon in future, So there is some race that Elon Musk activated, and now similarly to what Trump did. Now we woke up because of defense and energy security. Now also the space activities are activated in Europe.
And I guess also the underlining asset there is the rare earth, right? We have quite a lot of rare metals on the moon as well. So the question is, who is going to be able to mine it and either bring it back to Earth or to refine it there, right?
Yes, I think so. This is also one of the missions, and now also in China. Everybody is speaking now about crystalline silicon for space applications. I think Elon Musk with his announcement really is has launched now a big race to the moon. He's not talking so much anymore about Mars, but the moon is now the first.
Yeah, I mean, it's much easier obtainable, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So and I guess the last step of having produced energy in space would be, how would we bring it down? Like, what would be the mechanism behind it?
There are also projects on that. You can bring it with microwave power down there, but I think this is really complete nonsense. Like fusion, similarly to fusion. I mean, if we produce electricity there in space, we should also use it in space. It's local production of electricity. I mean, we learned it from our past, for example, from the Desertec project. There was a big project that we will produce electricity in Africa and bring it to Europe with cables, and but this is complete nonsense, because then you have also losses, and it doesn't just make sense to be dependent on other countries. It has to be produced locally. Similarly to space, if you have the computing centers in space, of course the information has to go down, but not the electricity. Just produce the electricity there where you will use it, and that's the beauty about photovoltaics, about solar, that in combination with batteries, you just can produce it whenever you need it, and not to transport it.
Makes sense. I mean, and I've been hearing the same, especially from the US. There is more and more talk about distributed generation on larger scales as well. And I think it makes the most sense, right? Because if you need to transport that electricity that you produced, the losses can be huge depending on the distance the power needs to travel, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. So there are some interesting initiatives here in Europe as well, but maybe let's dig a little bit deeper into the US. So at least on the industry level, I'm hearing mixed signals, after the demise of the Inflation Reduction Act and what is going to replace it. So obviously there is also no clear guidance on the US level. What are the expectations from the companies who are in solar? What is the feeling from the market?
I mean, the companies that are already producing are, let's say, quite happy with an environment at the moment, because everything that they are producing they can sell, because the import tariffs are so high that actually local production is extremely welcome. But for future, of course, the companies would like to have more support in capex and opex, and I don't know if this is coming. I think not. In the next 3 years, this will not come. But even without it companies are thinking about expansions, and only because they already started the production. So let's say the Inflation Reduction Act was a good catalyst, a good initiator for that. And now, because of the import tariffs and also, let's say, some local supports from the states, they have a good business plan. Like, for example, Saniva, we are now supporting with production, and they are already talking about expansions and have their customers. And so it's running well, but it could be better when the next government or whatever will support them also with other incentives.
Excellent. So we were talking about the US. So the manufacturers, they are quite happy. Is there any sort of ambition to even export from the US to other markets, or?
No, they just have to really cover their own needs at the moment, and export to other markets will be quite difficult for US companies. So it's really only to cover their own needs, because they can sell the modules at quite high prices compared to the other markets, like in Europe. So they have a protected market, and there is no intention to export, only to cover the local needs. And what is happening is, for example, Corning has set up 7 gigawatt ingot wafer, and they have also there are also many module producers in US. What is still missing are the cell producers, and Corning, of course, let's say, wants to sell all the ingot wafer material for the local market. And so they are now looking for possibilities in US also to start cell production. But I believe what could also happen, that they are exporting wafers to other countries like India, for example, and have their Indian producer which is making the cells and also sending back the cells to US. So exports, yes, but only that the end product actually ends in the US market because of the high prices.
That's a very interesting use case, and I wonder how long it can last, if the market would open up.
I think not so long. I mean, this case that Corning is exporting wafers and making from cells module again, because this hole will be filled quite fast. I think that there will be about 10 gigawatt cell production in US in the coming 2 or 3 years. And yes, I don't know what will happen with the import tariffs, if they will stay still so high. So it could happen that US will stay a protected market for a quite long time.
It's quite tricky, and I wonder if there is any possibility to kind of project or manage the long-term impact of all these policies, right? Because I have the feeling that in this world, you as a company, you cannot really even plan longer than 6 to 12 months ahead. Everything is changing so rapidly. The policy is changing so quickly, and the geopolitics as well. Like with the price of silver going through the roof, that also caused quite a lot of trouble in the module manufacturing as well, right?
Absolutely. And so it's not only for the producers, but also for an institute like ISC Konstanz. We cannot plan too much ahead. And, in the last years, there was a cut of R&D money in Germany for PV, even though the Green Party was in charge for that, because of the Schuldenbremse, there was no money. And now our government these days, fortunately, is now putting again more money into R&D of crystalline silicon cell and module development, but mostly because of our strong machine builders, that they also will be able in future to export their machines, for example, to India and US, and we have the technology. But the question is also what will happen after the next elections in Germany. Will there be money again for R&D of crystalline silicon or not? And that's why our business model, we have to adapt every 3 years these days. And that's why also we have a strategy to go more towards space and help ESA to establish their technology out there, because space is now becoming a very strong business, and I think also a long-lasting business, independent of terrestrial photovoltaics. But you are completely right. I mean, the companies, they are just looking what is happening out there. And with today's policies, you cannot be sure what will happen in the next weeks. So I am sure, then coming to your very first questions, I'm sure that analysts have some long-term forecasts, but
it's going to be
many things can happen.
No matter what.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's these days you cannot make an accurate forecast what will happen.
For sure. And if we circle back to the machine builders, like can you give us a state of the countries who are the strongest in building the machines, let's say on a global scale? Is Germany still a big enough player? Or I know that Japan and China are really ahead of the race, but who else would be able to play a significant role?
Okay, so in terms of photovoltaics, Japan is not a big player. It's big players are, I mean, leading is of course China. They have in every value chain at least 80% of the market share. And for example, in ingot wafer, it's even 98% market share of the whole market. So China is a giant. But still, in Europe, we have good machine builders for module production, which is Ecoprogeti and at Mondragon. But in Germany, we have a big focus on cell production. So in my home country, Baden-Württemberg, most of them are located there. We have Centrotherm, we have Rena, and we have Schmid, but also outside of Baden-Württemberg, Singulus, von Ardenne, and many others. But also, let's say, on the characterization, there are good companies still like Halm, Wavelabs. Kontron is working on MES systems, and then we have ISTRAVision of optical inspection, and so on, and many more. So actually, Germany still have many machine builders, and as we speak in Frankfurt today, just in 2 hours, there will be a meeting of all these machine builders together with institutes like Fraunhofer, ISE, ISFH, AS, HZB, how the German consortium consisting of institutes, we have still the technology and are normally used as integrators, and the machine builders, how we can together again offer something like turnkey solutions out there so that the technology will be more accepted. And this is what the customers are asking for normally. It's not supplying machines, they are asking for turnkey solutions. So to answer your question, China is dominating, but still Germany is in the race in India and in US, also because of independence questions and also because of cybersecurity. So the biggest argument of Saniva a couple of years ago when they decided to go machines, they were evaluating Chinese and German machines, and of course they realized the capex will be much lower for the Chinese machines, but they don't want to get independent on Chinese companies. So they selected German equipment, and now their expansions hopefully will be also based on German equipment.
So it's a full circle in terms of cybersecurity as well. And when you said turnkey solution, can you define what that means? So is it hardware, software combined, and it's ready to deploy, or what does the whole package contain?
Exactly. So basically, a description of turnkey is that one company is responsible to set up everything and to give you the key. And if the customer is not satisfied, then they will have to cope with this company. What is happening out there is let's say, some companies are cherry picking themselves. that they have an advisor, and he said, yeah, but this turnkey is not good because this and that is, I can provide better solutions for screen printing and for whatever. And then a company can also decide to go cherry picking, and then they have to talk to every company that have supplied the machines, for example, if a machine is not working, and that's quite complicated. And then the finger pointing starts. No, it's not my machine. It's his machine, and then people are in trouble.
Again, it comes back to the vertical integration part, right? That we seem to have learned the lessons from the car industry now. That once we farmed out all the individual components, now we are doing the reverse, and we try to vertically integrate all of those operations and components into the final product.
Turnkey does not necessarily mean that it's like having the whole supply chain. But for example, if I offer a solar cell production facility, then normally the not very knowledgeable companies, which are the let's say companies that did not produce solar cells and modules before, like Reliance, they are asking for turnkey solutions that there's only one company that is responsible for the whole thing.
Makes sense, and I mean it's easier to handle and troubleshoot as well if something goes wrong.
Yes, and you have one face to the customer, and then exactly the company has to take care of the problem themselves and speak to the other machine builders. So it's very convenient. And what happened in the past, that I mean, all big machine builders have offered turnkey solutions like Centrotherm and Rena. But this time is over also because they suffered in the last couple of years. And to offer turnkey solution, you also have to do, let's say, a big investment and then big package to secure, let's say, security package to secure if there will be problems. And this is also what is being discussed today in Frankfurt. How, for example, the German government, if they want to support these initiatives, if they could give some guarantees if a turnkey will be offered again. At the moment, we are offering turnkey light solutions together with Centrotherm and Rena, for example, that the liabilities are distributed through all the partners, but there is one partner indeed that is taking care of the integration of the whole production line. But still, it's not a turnkey solution. It's like something that you have one person that is responsible, but still the risk is distributed among the partners.
Interesting. And actually, it brings me back to the Tesla example again. You know, I don't know how much you've read about the Tesla Megapacks, but they don't really get too much publicity. But what they did is exactly the perfect turnkey solution, that they deliver the hardware, the software, and the installation as well. So you know, those larger packs where you have, I think it's 20 megawatt hours, you know, per unit, and you have 4 units joined by a connecting station in the middle. They deploy it, but they also provide the software to manage it. And this is actually one of the most profitable parts of the business as of last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds very interesting.
We don't know what the future might hold, but I see we are actually coming to the end of our time. And Rado, I really appreciate you taking the time. But before we wrap up, I really want to give you the floor to basically talk a little bit more about the initiatives that you are working on this year and what type of people should reach out and perhaps, you know, promote those initiatives. And we will link to all of those in the show notes below. Okay,
very good. Thank you. That's a good platform to talk about it. So ISC Konstanz mission these days on terrestrial photovoltaic platform is to go to countries like India and US and transfer technology, but we are also organizing workshops and we are organizing industry forums on conferences which are already existing. So this year, what will be quite interesting. For example, in US, within the IEEE PVSec, which will take place in New Orleans in June, we are organizing an industry forum where we are inviting companies that we already talked about, like Corning, Saniva, First Solar for the thin film, but also we aim to invite Tesla because of their big 100 gigawatt plans. And the aim there is not to make advertisement for their companies, but to talk to students, because it's like really a technical conference. And in order to set up production in countries where PV production is not yet there, or let's say only small production, what is very important is manpower. And also, again, make students interested to invest their studies into crystalline silicon photovoltaics, because what is happening out there in the world, that many countries are frustrated. Now we have lost our crystalline silicon technology to China, and we have to go a complete different way, going to perovskites. No, that's not true. We also must be involved in crystalline silicon, and that's the mission of ISC Konstanz, to educate students in US in the IEEE conference, or we are going also to India and are organizing workshops there. I told you already there will be a workshop in October, Gigawatt PV Tech in Hyderabad, together with RCT Solutions and Premier, where we are inviting companies and students to have a dialogue, what will be needed in crystalline silicon technology in future. And as I told you, it's not only going to higher efficiencies and lower cost, it's also artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and make the production much easier and not so complex. So this is one thing. And there will be also a third conference, EU PVSec, which we are working very close with in this year. It will be in Rotterdam in September. And there we are also organizing industry summit and forum sessions, where together with R&D people and industry, we have a dialogue how to improve the work between these two sectors.
And maybe coming back to the students, students of what type of studies should join? Anybody interested in solar manufacturing, or is there any sort of niche that should go?
Yes, so there are already studies for, let's say, renewable energies, but it's also physicists and mechanical engineers we will still need in future, how to build better machines and how to improve the processes, but also, let's say, programmers about artificial intelligence, how to make really a dark factory that not many people have to work there, and that will be, let's say, produced by robots and things like that. So yeah, it's a broad spectrum of students that will be needed in a renewable sector in future, also in PV, in the production sector. But we are also aiming not to educate students, but let's say workers that have lost their jobs, maybe also in car industry, because it's not running very well, also to educate them how to produce solar cell and modules. So together with RCT Solutions and VIP, these are the organizers of the European conferences, we have established a platform called PV Training, where we want to train not only students. I mean, students will have normal education and then go to the companies and help them with new developments, but just blue collars, like workers that want to be involved in this mission. And this is what Elon Musk will need the most also in the US. In order that he will get 100 gigawatt cell and module production online, he needs people that will work in the factory and use the machines, hopefully from Germany, to produce the cells and modules. Yes,
that's amazing. So I don't know how you manage all of these activities in tandem, but it seems like you are busy 24/7.
Yeah, a little bit less, but yes. Absolutely. So I'm traveling quite a lot to discuss about technology transfer, about training and education. That's my mission now. I was responsible for 20 years for the technology. Now Licho is doing the job and developing new solar cells, bifacial back contact, tandem, and things like that. And I'm responsible for strategy and education. And one part of the strategy is to be involved more also in the space arena. But one part of the strategy is also to have ISC Konstanz also as a platform to train people for PV production.
Amazing. But we'll make sure to link to all of these in the show notes below. And I hope that this episode, if I could pick one from the whole catalog, I hope this reaches as many people as possible.
Yes, very good. Thank you. I will also post it in all my channels. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's always appreciated. But again, fantastic second round. Really nice to have you here. And then let's meet in perhaps Munich.
Yes, Munich and then Hyderabad.
Yeah, then Hyderabad as well. Excellent. So we have a deal, Rado. So thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you very much.